Hey Dan, what's up? How's it going? Just hanging out here, getting set up, waiting for us to get started. And I'm probably gonna hang out for a few minutes like I normally do. Before I actually start talking about Unity Dev today, we're right here at 4 o'clock and hoping to see some folks come through. Obviously, if you're watching, say hi in chat so I know you're here and I'll give you a wave. Um, This is EdAlliance. So if you are an EdAlliance game maker, you are welcome to be here and to listen in on what I'm talking about today for our game making challenge. I see Emmy in the chat. Yeah, so glad you're here, Emmy, joining in with Dan as one of the intrepid, dedicated game makers we have on this team. So I'm glad you're here. One of the topics we're going to talk about today is we did a little bit of troubleshooting and getting Unity Collab to work. And we had some issues with that last time. I realized I left out a step, and now I have the one true way to actually add me as a collaborator to a Unity project. I see Narelle in the chat. Hey, Narelle, what's up? And I see a mysterious third edition here. I think I know who that is. Welcome, guys. We got Sony 5. We got DDT, number. Good to see you guys. I know who you are. I'm so glad to see you here. So once again, this is your video game design online. And I will be talking about the digital game making challenge, getting you guys set up with your projects, and hopefully getting us to a place where I can actually check out the prototypes you're making for this challenge. So, I wanted to kick off today actually by letting you guys know that we now have a home base on the internet for all of this stuff that we're doing online. We have a site at makeroom.elinemedia.com/online-learning. Dan, I know you're watching. If you could paste that URL in the chat, that would be fantastic, so folks can connect up with that site. Because from now on, we'll be posting updates right there on the Make Room website about this challenge that we're working on. And that also is where you have all of the links to everywhere that I'm doing content creation to help you guys continue to learn game making and work on this project specifically. So from now on, if you want to connect up with us, with Dan and I, and with Eline Media, you can just go to that URL, and you'll be able to find everything you need to know right there on that site. So I just put that together today, and I'll be adding content to it every week. There's only one blog post on there right now, which is how to install Unity, and I know you guys already know how to do that. So you're way ahead of the game on that front, but we'll be updating it with all kinds of content and summaries of what we work on each week. So definitely check back every week when you're thinking about this class. The one thing to know is I'm gonna move the Twitch cast over to the Eline Media official Twitch channel. So I'll be broadcasting on Eline Media's Twitch channel and not my own starting next week, just so we can keep things all official and in one place. So don't worry about that, but you'll need to subscribe to the Eline Media Twitch channel, and we'll give you guys the link to that channel um, in email, and it's available there on that site. So the links on that site will take you to the Eline Media Twitch channel, and going forward, that's where you'll see me every week at 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. No, sorry, 4 p.m. on Mondays and 4 p.m. on Wednesdays. So it's exciting stuff. We're making lots of content, and that content is all for you guys to turn you into even more amazing game developers than you already are. Honestly, we have some people in the chat here who are among the best of any of the people across all of our studios. So I'm absolutely thrilled to see you guys here. And I wanted to talk you guys through some stuff towards getting this project together. So if you're just joining in or trying to remember, what is the project that we're doing, I would go to that URL, makeroom.elinemedia.com/online-learning, and that'll help you situate yourself, figure out what we're working on. We've got this game, we're working on it throughout April. The theme is Alone Together. That is the theme. Within that theme, you can make anything. And we're going to take you guys through some ideas, but again, ideas are just ideas. You can put together whatever you want. So I'm really excited to see what all is going to come together here. So for today, I thought I would take you guys through first just the basics of how to correctly add me to your project as a collaborator. Again, I talked about this in the last Twitch cast and I gave an incomplete process. So if you did it last time, you'll want to follow this one and don't do what was on the previous Twitch cast video. But this is going to be really useful because as we go forward, you're going to have some exciting opportunities for people to see the games you're making. So in addition to all games that are submitted to this challenge being play tested and released on the Make Room website, I will also throughout the month of April be playing your prototypes on this Twitch cast. So if you add me as a collaborator to your Unity project this week, I will pull your project and play your prototype as part of the weekly broadcasts I'm doing. And I would absolutely love to feature your game and have a lot of fun playing with your prototype. Obviously it's scary sometimes to have your broken project shown on Twitch, but it's all in good fun. And the really cool thing will be to see how people's projects are evolving as the weeks go by. So definitely add me as a collaborator. The utility of doing that, in addition to showing people what you're working on through Twitch, is if you have a major issue with an element of the game, like you need troubleshooting, you're going to want to add me and also Dan to your project so we can pull it and see what's going on. We're not going to do it for you, but we can definitely step in to help by pulling the project you're working on. All right, so to summarize, this takes a little bit of doing. It's a multi-step process that we always do for the projects you guys work on at Edgies, but now you have to do it on your own because you're on your own computer and you're using your own Unity account to create a project rather than us creating a project and just adding you to it. All right, let's get Unity on the main screen here. Woo. All right. So here's my new Unity project. This is a blank project I created. Just going to Unity Hub, clicking on New, and then I named it Example Project New, just to show you guys what's up. And to log this into Collab, the first thing you'll need to do is, you click on Collab, and if you click on Start Now, it's going to load this Services tab kind of behind this box. I can click in the box again to hide it. And this is where I'm going to create a project ID that allows me to push my projects to the cloud. So I'm going to select Natalie Mesnard, which is my Unity organization, and you should probably only have one. So you select yours, you click Create, and then Unity will load this Services tab, which means now I have a project connected with the Collab system. And when I click here and click on Start Now, I should actually be able to push the project. This is much the same as last time. And here we have our familiar ability to push. I'll type initial commit. And the project is committed. So it's available there in the cloud now. Anyone who's added to the project can access it, but it takes a little bit of doing to actually add someone to your project. So let me show you guys how to do that. You're going to go to the Unity website here. I have it open, and clicking up here to log in. I'm already logged in here. It looks like I'm actually in as the wrong account. And one of the things I wanted to touch base with you guys on is if you're going to add me to your project, you're going to need to do it with this email address. This is my personal email address, and it's the one I use with Unity. So please use this email, mesnardna@gmail.com, to add me. I think I had told people to use my Eline Media account last time, and that was incorrect. So use my mesnardna@gmail address, and you'll be on the right track. So I'm going to log in here with this address and access my Unity account to show you guys again how to add someone to a project. So I'm going to click up here, and I'm going to go to organizations. I'm part of a bunch of organizations here, so don't worry too much about this. You'll see your organization there, and you'll click on your own screen name to go to the organization. Once again, this is not my real address, so don't send me any presents because I don't live there. So what you're going to do here is, and this is really important to do in the right order, clicking on members and groups. So over here on the left is members and groups. I'm going to click here. And what I need to do if I want to add somebody to my project is I first have to add them as a member of my Unity organization. So I'm going to click the plus here, and I'm going to add Dan. Now here's Dan's email. You can add him as well. I type his email in the box, and then he can be a user in my Unity organization. That should be fine. I don't need to add a group. I just click next. Here's my screen to review before I continue. I click invite members, and this should send Dan an email letting him know I've invited him to my organization. So that's step 1 in members and groups. Step 2, I'm going to go to subscriptions and services. I'm going to click on manage seats. And now I have Dan listed here and myself. I've got an X here, which would allow me to revoke a seat, and a plus next to Dan's, which means I can assign him a seat in my organization. So he needs a seat to be on the project. I'm going to click this green plus, and it says seat is assigned successfully. I scroll down, I look, and it says Unity Teams Basic next to user in Dan's row. He should be good to go. Now, something to keep in mind here is if you're not paying for Unity, you can only put 3 people in your organization at a time. So if you add Dan and you add me, you won't be able to add anyone else. If you end up wanting to add someone else to your team, if you want to work with someone else, you'll need to delete either Dan or myself and add that other person as a member, then assign them a seat here in subscriptions and services. So make sure you remember that if you're trying to add another person, you need to check if you've already hit the maximum number of 3. And you yourself do count as one of the 3 people in the organization. So, all right, so you've added a member, you've given that member a seat. The last step is to actually add them to the project. So I'm going to click on projects here. And my project's name was Example Project New. I'm going to go click on this. There it is. And I click on the title. Here's the overview for my project. There's all kinds of details on analytics and all this stuff that we don't need. What we do need to do is click on Settings, click on Users, and then I'm here where I can add people from my organization who have seats to the project. So I click in the field. Dan's name is actually already an option because I added him and he has a seat. So when I click on him there, this blue button should light up nicely. I can click add. And there he is in the bottom. And if all of this works as planned, Dan should see this project now appear in the list for Unity Hub. And he'll be able to download the project and pull whatever the latest changes are. So he and I actually were troubleshooting this before I started Twitch casting, and we did find out that it's really important to do it in this order. So don't add someone to your project first and then add them as a member of your organization. It causes a lot of bugs, and I realized in the last video I was telling you to do it in that order, which is essentially the wrong order. So don't do it that way. Start from scratch. You can just delete everything, delete everybody that you added if you did it that way, and start by adding me or Dan or both of us as members, then giving us seats, and then adding us to your project. Once again, this video, like all of the Twitch casts I'm doing, will be posted on YouTube after this. So if you were not following along, I would suggest referencing the video when you're ready to add us on Collab, and you can just hop to the part that tells you what you need to know. So this is now officially in existence for you to utilize whenever you are ready and at that stage. So if you guys do start the process while you're here following me on this broadcast, please chat us up. Dan's here in the chat, like I said, so we can try to troubleshoot if you're hitting an issue. I will respond, or Dan can take a look as well. But this would be a really great time to try to get that rolling. So yeah, let us know if you guys have questions, if you're having problems. And I do know that it sometimes takes a while to open Unity. So you may have been like, oh my gosh, I'm opening Unity and now it's all this stuff about setting up Collab. So no worries if you're not following along. Just know that this is what's happening. And I do want to be on your project so I can pull your changes and see what you guys are working on. I'll be really excited to be a collaborator with you as you work on a project for this challenge. All right. So I've got Dan here as a collaborator. I have an issue with the storage quota exceeding the limit. Yes. So you can have up to, I think, 1 gigabyte of game data. And if you do happen to have more than that, what you're going to need to do, just reading about this in the chat here, I think from Emmy, you will need to archive your projects that you are not using in order to clear up space. So if you do have some larger game projects that are stored in your account already, I believe you can actually do an archiving process within this project-specific screen. Let's see here. Gonna click on overview. I'm trying to remember where the archive menu is. Here it is. So what I would do is I would look at my projects and see which ones I wanted to maybe delete. And what you can do if you decide to archive, which is essentially the same thing as deleting a Unity project, is you can save it locally onto your computer's hard drive and then archive it in the cloud so that it's not part of Collab, but you still have a copy on your computer. So if you download it on your computer, it's a copy of the project is there. And I would usually do that first. And then you can come here, clicking on the project in your Unity organization. And then you click on settings and then general. And then you click on archive. And when you click there, you'll see this screen that says you must type archive in order to proceed. If you type archive, it opens this button and then you click yes, archive it. So that's how I would deal with that. I would just do some organization in there and figure out what you really want to keep in the cloud for now. You need a Unity Teams seat in order to enable collaborate. That's an interesting problem. So you should probably see if you're logged into Unity. So make sure you're logged into Unity because if you're logged into your account comes with a Unity Teams seat. So if you're in Unity and you're clicking on collaborate, you'll want to click account and see if you're signed in right now. I hope that's what that is. I am signed in. That's an interesting problem. So I would say if you're coming through with that error, I'm just reading this. I would say if you could email us a screenshot of what you're seeing, we'll try to troubleshoot it offline. I'm actually not sure why it would say that if you're logged in, because your account should come with a Unity Teams subscription. I have no idea why you would not have access to that. So definitely, again, ping me on email or ping Dan. Dan, if you want to toss your Gmail in the chat again, you guys might be able to exchange a couple emails actually even during this broadcast. So try to work that one out. I'm really not sure why it would tell you you don't have Unity seats, because you should definitely have a subscription. So let's keep working on that one. If there's any other questions, yep, here comes Dan's email address. So you can email him to troubleshoot things too. I'm trying to think. I don't know why it would say that. Really weird. All right. So people are getting this set up. Hopefully emails are going through. This is the most annoying part. So hopefully from now we'll have some fun with actual game development work. And we won't have to do IT for the rest of our lives. So I wanted to show people a couple things today as far as creating a prototype. And I had talked last time about getting set up with some basic resources for setting up a prototype. And I'm going to build out a nice base of assets in this video so you guys can see what I would work with if I were doing this project. As I'm loading in assets, again, we can keep troubleshooting. So type your questions in the chat. We'll try to figure it out. And in the meantime, I am going to pull in the Unity standard assets, and I'm going to pull in a really nice free cabin asset that I found. And together with those two, I'm going to show you guys how I would set up an environment that has the interior of a house. For those who've been following along, we had a few different example projects with mechanics I thought were really great for this theme. Again, the theme is alone together. And we talked about a pizza delivery game. We talked about kind of a spooky house game. And then the third idea was to do a game where you move around as a cat and knock things over inside a house. Just thinking about some of the themes that are part of our lives right now of being inside and being isolated, and then also the role that delivery drivers are playing in interacting with our lives and bringing us food and all the different necessities that we might normally go out in order to buy. So today I'm going to focus on some stuff to play around with the first person character controller in the standard assets, and maybe thinking about ways that you could walk around in a house and play with an interior a little bit, thinking about mechanics you could do based on an asset that's already out there. So thinking down the pathway of the example game of My Doll's House today. If you haven't played it, check it out. Let's get the standard assets, and then I'll download our cabin, and we'll be off and running. In the meantime, if you're in the chat, keep me updated on whether or not you were able to finish out the collab process. Where are they? What a strange thing. I cannot find them today. Isn't it always the way? Done. All right. Looks like we got David collabing. I am looking for my standard assets pack in the Unity Asset Store, and I am not finding it in the normal way. Let's see if we can find it here. Strange indeed. All right, let's get our cabin first. Since I cannot find the standard assets, I dearly hope Unity did not remove them from the asset store prior to this broadcast, but it appears that that is the case because searching for them does not result in that asset. Let's get our free cabin at least. Cool. So here's my furnished cabin. And as usual in the asset store, I'm just going to click import here because I already downloaded it. I'm reading in the chat here, David's saying it was removed. Are you referring to the standard assets? That's interesting. It must have been removed just this week. I do have a copy of them. Yep. So, in fact, that's actually what I was going to do next is I was going to create a package of the standard assets so that I can pull them out of another project, and I'll show you guys how that works as well. But first, I'm going to pull this furnished cabin asset, and if you're interested in doing an interior of a house, this one's nice. It's super basic, it's not too big, and it comes with some interactions that are just nice little things to include in a first-person environment in a house. So if you're interested in playing with a first-person controller today a little bit and not building out a house from scratch, grab this furnished cabin and you can follow along. So I'm going to actually unmaximize this. And interestingly enough, this asset works with the Unity standard assets. And since we can't find them on the store, I'm going to go ahead and open another Unity project I have that I know these standard assets are actually in. And I'll show you guys how I use custom Unity packages to transfer assets between Unity projects. This will be something that you can do between yourself and another person on the team or between yourself and me. So if you ever want an asset you see on this broadcast, you can email me and ask for it, and I will share it with you as a Unity package that you can load into your project. So I'm going to open this other example project where I was doing something very similar. Only this project was made prior to the Unity standard assets apparently being removed from the asset store. What a strange phenomenon. Those are very useful. It makes me very sad that they are gone. So if you didn't actually get those, definitely let me know and I will send you a package. So the way I'm going to do this to create a package to port into another project is I'm going to click on the folder here in the project window, right click and go to export package. We'll give it a minute to load. It's going to probably take a while because, oh yeah, look there. It's trying to just do everything. I don't need my sample scenes from this project. I do want everything in standard assets though. I'm unchecking sample scenes. That's this folder down here. And I'm just going to put the check on the root folder of standard assets. If I hit this, I'm going to see everything in the standard assets is listed and it's automatically checked by checking this top one. You can see how that automatically checks everything. That's what I want. I'm going to click it export here and let's, for the sake of ease, put it on the desktop. I'm going to call this standard assets and it saves as type Unity package. I click save and the export runs. We'll give it a few minutes to do that. Probably taking a bit longer than usual because of the size of that folder. It's got a lot in there. There it is. And now I can return to the project where I was working with you guys, which was example project new. Here it is. And back here in this project, I know I'm seeing 2 years later here. Yes, 2 years later, we waited we waited 2 years of our lives cumulatively for Unity to load. I'm going to click on assets. I'm going to go import package and custom package. And standard assets, the package I just made, is right there on the desktop. So if you were to download this from me, you'll get probably a zip file that you'd need to extract. When you extract it, it always has this Unity icon, and this loader is not going to show any files on your computer except Unity package type files. So it's pretty easy to find. So I click open here and we'll once again wait 2 years as it decompresses into this project, being just eminently patient with the process of loading things and importing things in Unity. Here's all the standard assets. I'm going to click import and let this run, and then we'll get our furnished cabin set up. So again, I can share this asset with you guys. If you do want this package from me, since it looks like we can't get it on the asset store now, just send me a quick email. You can email either email address of mine, nmessnard@elinemedia.com or messnardna@gmail.com. I will send you a link that gives you that Unity package. So if you don't remember at that time how to download the package, just head back to this video and hop to the part where I showed you. You'll be able to follow along there. So hopefully this won't take too much longer and be able to show you guys some fun stuff with these assets. And as I'm waiting for this, I'm curious, did anybody else besides David get the collab going? How's your collab process? I see I've been invited to Emmy's organization. I see at least 2 have come through, and then maybe that taking forever. Awesome. Okay, so it's just slow. The world of Unity development. All right. So happily, this thing has loaded. Let's check out Furnished Cabin. I'm going to open this, and this comes with a nice demo scene. And right here, we've got the whole cabin kind of laid out. Wanted to give you guys a couple tips about this asset. So I'll dog my game up here and click maximize on play so we can see it. And if all worked well with the import, I should be able to just run it, and the first person character controller will be pulled from the standard assets. Yes, so that's. So I've got just a nice setup here. I've got my footsteps sounding off. I think you guys can probably hear that. And just a nice interior. I've got a bedroom. Now this is going to be really creepy to you guys, but like if you go up to the mirror, you're just totally invisible. Like you do not exist in this world. So right there, I'm already like, that would be a really cool concept for a game. Like if you were a ghost, just so interesting. Got a bedroom, and it's just a fun little place. And just really set up nicely for you to start playing with. So, however, that would be so awesome. Yeah. So David is saying, I want to make it so you can play on the TV. So one of the things, of course, that you want to be able to do with this immediately is, we have a red crosshair here in the middle. You want to be able to click on things and interact with them. And this asset actually comes with some pre-made interactions, but they're not working right now. So I click and absolutely nothing happens. And why is that? Well, if we troubleshoot the asset, I will show you. There is some basic documentation in here. And anytime you download an asset, it doesn't work the way you're expecting. I always look for documentation because sometimes these things require some setup that's not possible for the developer to set up for you before you download it. So I'm going to open this. Here's the furnished cabin documentation. And this actually says it utilizes the standard assets. That's why we had to pull it. And it tells me here, objects that the player can interact with are controlled via the C# script move object controller. In order for the script to work correctly, the project needs to be configured in the following way. I need a layer named Interact Raycast. And that layer would be how these things know that when I'm looking at them, I can interact with them. So going back over here, it's telling me to go to project settings, tags, and layers, and add a layer called Interact Raycast. I'm going to type in here, enter, and then that should be actually get us good to go. I'm going to hit play here and see if Interact Raycast got me going. Absolutely did. So now it's detecting the layer the interactable objects are on. I'm seeing this press E/fire1 to open, and now these locations are opening up. This one's a bit weird. It actually, you have to step close to it to close it and then like back up because your body blocks the doors closing. But some of these are just fine. You click on it once to open it and then you click on it to close it again. So already we've got some really nice, just basic animations being triggered by clicking on things. So you click on that. Don't think this turns on. Oh, but that opens. And, it would be fun if that turned on, but it doesn't. Aspirations, right? So I open this, go over here. What are all the things I can open? Yeah, here's this. Cool. Yeah. So definitely some fun gameplay available right off the bat. Like looking for things, what am I going to see when I open this? Whatever you guys want to put in there, it would be amazing to see something surprising inside. So if you want to use this asset, you need to do that Interact Raycast step. And then if you have the standard assets package, which I can give to you, you'll be able to set this up just like this right away and think about how you would design gameplay for it. Now, I wanted to just give you guys some tips, just some inspiration I had about looking at this interior and thinking about how I would start to work with it. One thing I noticed, like if you hit play, I am really tall. Like I feel like my head is a foot from the ceiling and I'm just towering down on this stuff. Like it's a little bit weird to me that I'm this tall. Maybe not, but when I'm working with a human environment, like a real world type of place, Sometimes I think I might really judge it so that it looks the way it would look to you if you were standing there. And I immediately want to scale the avatar down to make it a little bit smaller, just so it doesn't look like my head is skating along the ceiling. So my first impulse is to click on this guy and just put the scale down a little bit. Seems a little bit better. Maybe I'm a little too short, but you get the idea. Change the size of the avatar a bit. My next thought was, if you wanted to put things inside the cabinets or inside the drawers, you're going to need to find out how to access the interiors of those objects. So what I would do is, here's the pantry. Let's turn off gizmos so we don't constantly see weird visual interferences. So here's the pantry, and say you were like, I want to put something inside this. Whoops. What I would do is I would click on it in the scene. All right, hold on. Oh, it's not the lighting issue. I would click on it in the scene and try to get it to highlight so I could have it open itself in the hierarchy. So I clicked around until a door highlighted on it, and that door is a child of the pantry game object here. So once I had gotten that highlighted, I would actually click here and just temporarily deactivate the doors. So now I might be able to see inside, and I could add things in here, reminding myself, of course, that I need to turn the doors back on when I'm done. So just as an example for this, I'll create a cube. I'm going to go create 3D object cube. And let's see, where are you, cube? There you are. I actually feel like the best way of putting something in here would be to make it a child of this object itself. So if I were to put any object in here, whether it's a cube or an asset, I would grab this and drop it on top of pantry so that it's a child of that object. And then with the cube highlighted, I'm going to reset its transform so it's right there at 0, 0, 0 as a child of the transform settings for this parent game object. Of course, that's how it works. I know you guys mostly have a sense of this, but it bears repeating here that if the cube's transform is 0, 0, 0, and it's a child of the pantry, that means it actually is inheriting these values for its transform, which is why it's located right here. So of course, I'm clicking on the parent, I'm going to click on the child. Let's move it up to the second shelf, and I'll make it small. Put it on there. Go. And then turning the doors back on. There's my cube. So, just thinking about a workflow for this of like, if I wanted to populate this house with more than what I'm seeing, this is how I would go about doing it. It depends. What do you want to put in there? Why would you put something in there? Seeing a question here, is there an on-click script like the on trigger? Yes, that is an excellent question. And so is there an on-click script like the on trigger? My assumption is you're referring to what causes the doors to open on this game object. And let's actually look into that a little bit. So if I click on the parent object here, PFB Pantry, I can see here that this game object has 2 scripts attached to it. And if you pull this asset, you can do this yourself. I would open these 2 scripts and check out what they're doing. I'm going to click Movable Object, Edit Script, run my Visual Studio, see what's in the script. Not a lot. So there's really just an entire script here giving this an object number of 1. So that's not going to give me a clue of what these are doing. So I feel like we're going to get our answer in this script. And here's the code. So what we've got here is we've got a bunch of stuff. And I'm immediately seeing that, as suspected, there is an on-trigger enter, on-trigger exit situation going on in here. So when we enter the trigger volume associated with this game object, we're setting player entered equals true. And then somewhere in this script, when player entered equals true, we're doing some additional logic to, in this case, set off an animation. So you don't have to understand the whole script to understand what it's doing. And what I'm going to do here, because I'm seeing when I enter the trigger volume, player entered is true. I'm curious what player entered is doing in this script. So I'm actually going to search for that variable and just see where else it appears. We've got the declaration at the top. Here's our on trigger enter and on trigger exit. And then here's our code in update. So in update, of course, that's running every frame. We're doing some logic if player entered is true. And now I'm not going to explain all this because that would take me another hour. But suffice to say, I see ray casting is happening, which means we're shooting out a line as though we're looking at someone. And I see an animator is being called to. So my interpretation of what's happening in this script is when the player hits the trigger volume, I suspect we're going to check to see, yep, here's our check to see if you clicked line. If I'm standing in the trigger volume and I click, here's our logic to turn on the animator and set a parameter that triggers a different animation. So if you were to look in the animator for this game object, you would probably see an animator state of closed and an animator state of open, and that's what we're triggering. So it's going to see if it's open, and in that case, it's going to trigger closed, and if it's closed, it's going to trigger open. So we've got a kind of basic situation here of just switching between two animation states. And we're switching between those two states based on clicking and being inside the trigger volume. So one thing you could do with this, just knowing that that's how it works, you could probably take that script and attach it to another game object. Create your trigger. See, here's the trigger right here. There it is. You can see that as long as I'm standing in there, that's when I can make my click. And then yourself, using Unity, create two animation states for that object that the script would automatically toggle between. So I can see a world where you could extend this system using your own objects and basing your system on the script that we have here. Makes sense, guys? I think that would be a really fun workflow for, playing with this. I can imagine, like, say you wanted to do the TV. I'd click on the TV and I'd say, I'm going to add those scripts that do logic on when the player enters the trigger. I'd add a trigger for it. And then instead of an animation of a door opening, I could have the trigger set off an animation state where the TV turns on. That would be a really fun way to go. It would certainly be mind-blowing if you clicked on this and then you went into another video game. I love that idea so much. So yeah, if you guys have other questions about the interior, just let me know. Let me know in the chat. And I am going to, now that we've explored playing with triggers inside the house, take you outside for a minute. I usually try to keep these to about an hour. So I think for these last 10 minutes, I want to show you a bit about working with terrain. So I'm outside the house here and I'm noticing this is a little bit dark. So one thing to keep in mind with an asset like this, and many assets are this way, this one uses baked lighting. And baked lighting is another way of saying it pre-calculates the way the lighting in the game looks. So it doesn't have to do it during gameplay. And that's good because if you calculated the lighting during gameplay, you'd take a hit to your frames per second. But what I often know is before you put out the final build of a game, you want to make sure you run the lighting baking one more final time. And that, of course, is in window, rendering, lighting settings, and then you click generate lighting when you're ready. So it may be looking a little dark to us because we would need to run that lighting baking process just once for it to freshly calculate the lighting and make it look the way it's supposed to look. But I'm not going to do that right now because it'll use up all our time. It's actually pretty intensive, processor intensive to do, and it's something you'll want to do when you have a few minutes. But what I wanted to show you guys out here is there's some fun things you can do with terrain. And if I wanted to surround this house in terrain, I would first click on the floor, find it here in this prototypes game object, and just simply go to the inspector and just get rid of it. Instead, I would click Create, 3D Object, Terrain, giving me a massive amount of ground to work with. These things are not small, let me tell you. And here's my terrain. So once you have a terrain in your game, there's so many fun things you can do with it. I know some of you guys have done this before, and especially if you did the Mario Kart clone project, you may have done a lot of terrain editing for that. But I just wanted to refresh your memory on how this works because it's a great resource, especially when you're building out a video game level, it's really common to create just like a flat plane that you can run off the edge of. But of course, real video games aren't like that. Real video games have some kind of natural looking thing that creates a boundary around the edge of the level. In fact, the game that inspired today's exploration of setting up a cabin with a first person player controller, My Doll's House, I appears to have like a border of mountains and trees kind of in a ring around the central like doll house that you're interacting with. And I wanted to remind you guys that that's actually really easy to set up. And there's no excuse for having just like a thing where you can run off the edge. So when you've got a terrain here, you've got a lot of options in creating a really interesting floor. And the tools for modifying and kind of forming the terrain are all, if you click on the terrain game object over here in the inspector. You've got, don't click on this one, that's going to be something different. But the paintbrush, paint trees, and paint details are all going to be absolutely fantastic for you guys. So just to start here, raise or lower terrain is your basis, and it's where you're going to want to go first. You've got a brush size, you've got a shape, and you've got opacity, which is how quickly this raises up when you click. So if you click again on the paintbrush, the default option here is raise or lower. And this is going to let you build a ridge of mountains around the area of your level fairly quickly. Now that's raising up real fast. I'm going to turn that down a little bit and increase the brush size. There we go. just to kind of create some ridges here. Maybe I want it to be a little bit more jagged, more mountain-like, something like that. This is the sloppiest thing I've ever made, but yeah. And then I'm going to actually hold shift and click on this to get rid of it. That was just way too much. Cool. Okay, so maybe I want to make it like this. I want people not to go behind the house. I just want them to come out here and enter into the rest of the level. Something like this, right? Obviously, you're going to put more effort into it, but, again, look how quick that went. I didn't have to put in these detailed walls. I didn't have to place 1,000 trees to block people from running off the level. I just click and then boom, there's mountains. So I got my raise and lower, and there's really a lot you can do with this. You can create these star shapes. You can really make it look kind of like rubble and be uneven. If you want to make something really strange and artificial like that, that does actually look like a rocky outcropping. So, I'd really encourage you guys to play with this and spend some time with it when you're working, even in an interior like this, just to create a little bit more realism. Okay, so next up, you have the option of painting trees. Now, the way this works is you've got the option to load in a game object that is a tree. And then when you click with the brush, it's going to automatically paint a cluster of trees underneath your brush. That is the same way as how this paint details functionality works. So what you would want to do here is, and actually let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to pull us a couple of assets that are really fun for painting. I'm going to download one called Grass Flowers Pack. Here it is. I've already gotten it. Let's import this. And then while we're at it, let's get a tree. I want free assets. And here's some free trees that are a bit lower poly than what I was doing before, but they'll do. And then last, let's get actually some grass textures as well, so we can make the ground look like something other than a checkerboard. Here's a hand-painted grass texture. This will do. All right. So here I am in the scene and clicking on the terrain again. Let's load in a tree. So I'm going to click Edit Trees and go to Add Tree. And it says, please assign a tree. I know I just pulled in some trees. I'm going to click this circle and I'm going to type tree. All right, here's some, let's do oak. I click oak here, I X, and then my menu is still here, so I need to click add. And now I've got a tree loaded in. That's blue, which means it's selected. And if I click, let's turn the brush size down just a bit. I'm going to generate trees. Ooh, that's a lot of trees. So maybe I want a little bit of a lower tree density. And let's see what the size is like on those trees. That's not too bad. So, if you were part of the team during the artistic golf project, you may have witnessed the very meticulous individual placing of trees and levels. And while that's a valuable exercise, in a natural environment, it's often much easier to just click to place trees rather than, really intentionally organizing them. Now, obviously, that's weird, and maybe I wouldn't use a low poly tree like that with a higher detail house. But let me show you guys the paint details one, which is also just so cool. So I'm going to, again, go down here. So I clicked on the flower icon, and then I click on Edit Details. And in this case, I'm going to either be able to add a texture or a mesh. For this, I'm going to pick texture. And here I click on the circle and let's type grass. Now, this is going to be so cool. All of these kinds of flowery looking textures that look like a flower on a black background are going to actually paint as though they were grass, like 3D grass. So these come with the grass flowers pack and they're just really fun. So I'm going to select grass 01 here. It's loaded in as the detailed texture. I'm going to click add. And now let's brush size down. If you look overhead, you can see I've got grass, and zooming in a bit closer, it's actually populated there really nicely. One of the really awesome things about using this detail painter is it automatically kind of makes this stuff act like grass. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's actually hop in the game and see my creations in action. Yes. So as I walk out here, I've got some swaying grass. I've got some bizarre low poly trees. It's all very beautiful. And anything you paint using that detailed painter is going to have that really nice swaying effect. So I recommend that you use things that are grass, because if you put something else in there, it doesn't look right. It looks like it's like sliding back and forth on the ground. The final one is, of course, to get rid of the checkerboard. And you would do that by, okay, see this says Inspector tab is a duplicate. Just click off of it and click on it again and you'll resolve that bug. We can get rid of the checkerboard by going back to the paintbrush, and where it says raise or lower terrain, I'm going to click and I'm going to go paint texture. So down here, I've got a button that says edit terrain layers. I click there and I go create layer, and I can add anything in my project that's a texture. If I type grass, looks like I had a few options. Let's go hand painted grass. And right there, it automatically layers that texture over the entirety of the map. If I don't like the way that's tiling, like, oh, it's too detailed, I'm going to want to click on this, making sure you know you're clicking on it because it has this blue border on the bottom. And then I go open, and I can change the texture to be a bit, that's huge. Let's try 10. Depends on what you want. But you can change the tiling depending on the size of the image here. And most textures that you bring in, you'll want to adjust the tiling so it looks appropriate to the look you're going for. Stuck in this menu, I'm going to go back to terrain. And now if I wanted to modify this and make it look not just grass, I can go edit, create, and I'm going to type grass again. And this time I'm going to add this rocky texture. Now I've got two. And the bottom one here, the one to the far left, is always going to be the one that's fully painted on the entire terrain. But any ones to the right of that, so if I click on this dirt, I can paint it. I should be able to paint it on top. Yeah, so see that? Conveniently, when I click and drag, it moves my trees and grass out of the way so I can see what I'm doing. But I'm looking down there and now I see my rocky texture. You know, I might want to do something. I'll hit Control Z there. I can see wanting to do something like this. Maybe making these look a little more rocky and keeping the grass. Keeping the grass in the interior of this little mountain range. So I'm looking at that, and at a distance, it looks real stripy. So once again, I'm going to up the, there we go. Maybe it's still a bit too big, but something a little bit more rocky. You know, you'll have to play with it. And of course, what you do is you paint it on there and then you run the game and go to see what it looks like from the perspective of your person. And we've got some swaying grass there. Here's my exterior with the mountains. We got some weird looking rocks. Looks like I need to work on that. But you get the idea, right? Like, I had nothing here before, and it's only been about 20 minutes. I've got something weird looking, but it already looks more like a video game level than it did when I started. So I would love to see you guys work with terrain to build out levels. I would love to see you guys work with some of the on trigger enter that's going on in the interior of the house and create interactions. Um, on the idea of using triggers, you have the option to do an extension of the scripts that come with this asset if you're using it. The other thing you could do is start from scratch and work with a script of your own. If you're interested in doing that, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We can always help you guys get set up. But again, this is inspired by My Doll's House, which was one of the 3 examples of mechanics, free games that had examples of mechanics that I've been showing here. And the plan is to demo some other examples of basic level prototypes that you could create. So, in addition to this, you could work with a car and do a delivery game. I'll show you guys a bit of stuff on working with cars in a future video. And then the other option would be to focus in on an interior setting, do less work with terrain and trees, and focus more on interactions with a specific kind of third-person avatar. The final thing I'll say about that before I sign off is I do have a cat avatar now that I would be more than happy to share with you. So let's actually go and I'll pull up my cat avatar. That'll be the final thing I show you guys before I sign off for today. All right. So if you were here many moons ago at Make Room, you will recognize this cat. But this cat may be new to some of you. This is one of our assets that we bought actually, so we can have some fun characters to play with. And if for example, if you were like, okay, I love the interior of the house, but I want to do the third person version instead of that first person kind of creepy house thing, I can give you a custom package of this cat avatar who I've set up for you to have a nice free look camera. So you can look around and sort of see whatever direction you want to go in. And she always walks away from the camera. So it's very nice because we've got her set up so that you never get confused about which direction is forward. You can control her speed. You can control how fast she turns. If I go face her like this, she'll turn around and walk away from you like an avatar is supposed to, and she jumps. I also have set her up with a little attack, which is this little nose peck here. So if you wanted to do a game that was similar to Dante's Infernia, which I demoed in the first video of this video game design online series, you've got everything you need to do a similar type of game. You've got jumping, you've got running, and you've got attacking. So if you're interested in using the cat, just like I imported that standard assets package, you can import this cat and, drop her into your scene and start playing around. So definitely let me know if you want this. It's a custom asset I put together, and I'm happy to share it with you, as well as the standard assets package. Yes, it is. I'm seeing in the chat someone saying, "Oh yeah, oh look, it's Emmy's cat." I almost feel like we should name the cat Emmy at this point, or maybe we'll name it Madison. But this cat has such nostalgia for me, and I actually was super excited because if you guys were part of Make Room back in the day, when we were working on the original Ted the Breadhead and Return of Ted project, It's Ted. That's right. Okay. This is Ted. We had a hard time animating this cat, and then we had a hard time getting the camera to set up and work right behind the cat. We've used a setup where the cat would pull the camera, but then the camera was fixed to the cat's butt. And I think this is just such a better camera setup where you can look at her, or him, I guess it's a him if it's Ted. And then wherever you're looking is the direction that the avatar moves. So, Emmy, if you do get this cat, I think you'll be happy about the way it acts. It's just a much better behaved avatar than it's ever been. So yeah, feel free to request from me the cat or the standard assets package. I see someone in the chat requesting, oh, it's David. I want to play all those games. Yes, we have Return of Ted and Ted the Breadhead. We should definitely find a way of releasing the builds of those games, especially Return of Ted is just a fantastic game. It's really fun. Though now that we have this nice camera, it's like if only we had a networked multiplayer version of that game. But absolutely, we should release those games. And, now that we have an internet home for all of this stuff, we have the possibility of making them available for everyone to play. So on that note, once again, if you're wanting to follow along, don't forget to go to makeroom.elinemedia.com/online-learning to see what's going on. And from now, I'm hoping folks will start putting together a prototype. Emailing me if you want assets. Otherwise, working to put together and push changes to a scene that you're building out that would be your basic environmental setup with your chosen avatar for the game you want to make for this challenge. And I'm hoping if people work on that to play test some of those prototypes, just demo them on this stream and see where people are at on Wednesday. If not that, then Monday. I promise if you have something buggy, I will not show it on here. I'll only do the highlights, always just to show that people are doing fantastic. But if you're able to push some changes to your project by Wednesday. So a question is, can my game have guns in it? That is not prohibited in this game making challenge. It's definitely not prohibited. And I generally say that I personally try to do, if I'm going to do a game with guns, I try to make them be a little bit less militaristic. Like I prefer like laser blasters and something a little bit more science fiction. But it's definitely not prohibited in this case because it's online. People have a lot more flexibility in deciding if they want to play. So, in that kind of context, we can always put a content warning if it is violent and just generally give people a description of what the game is so that when they click on it, they already made an affirmative choice to enjoy playing it. And no one who makes an affirmative choice to play a game will complain that it had guns because we can assume that's definitely something that becomes a concern when you're just more in a group context that basically people are just sort of walking in there and they don't know what they're going to see and they encounter something, which is what we normally have when we're there at EdAlliance. All right, guys. Well, this is it for today. Your first person setup with the cabin. The cat is on offer and available to you, as are the standard assets. Keep up with us on the website, and you can email me or you can email Dan if you guys have questions. I will be here live once again on Wednesday at 4 p.m., showing you some more tips and tricks for game development. And if you have requests or something you would like me to demo on one of these videos, email me and I will prioritize it. I will absolutely talk about what you want me to talk about and teach you what you want to know. So if you want to learn something like how to set up on trigger for that cabin, let me know. If you're putting the cat in and you're like, how do I make the cat actually push things over? If you email me, I will prioritize that over other things. Otherwise, you'll just get a stream of game development content coming from me. Whatever I think of, I will talk about. So I hope you guys are excited to be working on a game. I am really excited to be seeing people working on games for this challenge. And I cannot wait to pull your projects and see what you guys are doing. You are free to be creative. So take that and run with it. Hunger bar. I love it. Would that be a hunger bar for the cat, perhaps? Or a hunger bar for like a ghost in the first person shooter or the first person um, cabin situation? You could definitely do hunger. It would have to like tick down gradually as the game goes on. Love it. So many good ideas. All right, guys. I am going to sign this off. If you would like to visit this video once again, you will be able to at any time. It is available on our YouTube channel. We are now collecting from YouTube channel. That's a different channel than the one I'd been using before, but never fear, it's Make Room. So go there to get to YouTube if you want to watch this video again. All right, guys.